Hi, welcome to Channel Squared, where we connect with you, the divine, and channel here with you live. I'm Heather Marie, founder of Soulgate.
And I'm Jody Lynn Craven, founder of Abundance Consciousness. Today, we're talking about soul contracts, karma, and how it affects your current human life.
Woo!
I know, right? That feels like a really big topic. Let's start from the beginning. Soul contracts. What's that?
Okay, so my understanding of soul contracts is when the soul has an experience that it wants to have, and it will either have the experience or it will create a contract based on an experience. So, like, it's kind of like the agreements that the soul makes either before incarnation or because of incarnation. I think that's like the most general way that I can put it. I think that there's a lot of nuance to soul contracts in the sense that souls can make contracts with other souls. It's not just like your soul is like contractually doing something or agreeing to something that only impacts it, but it could like have impact to other souls also. So like, for example, your soul maybe had an incarnation with a parent, like who your current parent is in this lifetime. So I'll use something that's like my family so that it'll be easier to understand. But like, so my mom, for example, my mom in this lifetime, she her soul, it was not part of my soul family. So the reason that she incarnated to be my mom was so that she could become part of my soul family. And so in this lifetime, I had to like contractually agree with her to have her be part of my soul family. And so that is a soul contract. And, that soul contract stays like in operation or like in effect, so to speak, until either like an objective has been met. And so therefore the contract has been satisfied. And even then, that doesn't mean that the contract will go away. Sometimes you have to like do work to have that contract like completed or dissolved or whatever. So like my mom and I created a brand new soul contract in this lifetime.
Wow.
So yeah, to have her be, part of the soul family. And so will that contract like remain in perpetuity for the rest of our soul's existence? Maybe, maybe not. That's for me
No.
next time to figure out.
Yeah.
But
That's right. And I
yeah.
mean, a contract or soul contract could be something to do with your purpose or an experience that you want to experience, or you've come specifically here to experience, like heartache or joy or riding a roller coaster. I don't know why that just came through. Is there really people that just come here to ride a roller coaster?
I think that was me.
Yes.
I love roller coasters.
Yeah, they're like, yeah, they made a contract to experience roller coasters. Interesting. And they're like, my guides are saying that it's not just like the physical roller coaster, but also the roller coaster that is life. That is something that they thought would be fun. Okay, to experience in this lifetime. It's also interesting too, and I don't know if this is classed as a soul contract, but we can make contracts, I guess, with our soul. Like I've done lots of past life work, and in my last past life sessions with a healer, Marilyn, we had her on our show, I had made a contract that of like scarcity, chastity, and poverty, I think it was. And those contracts were like contracts I made with myself, that I was going to experience these things. So in other lifetimes, we can make contracts that must, I guess, be on some level a soul contract if we're carrying them through to the next lifetime, to the next lifetime. What do you think, Heather?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I see what's really weird about like contracts like that, where your soul made a contract with itself to have chastity, what was it? Chastity,
Poverty and
poverty,
scarcity.
scarcity.
Yeah.
Yeah. So poverty, chastity, and scarcity, like two of those affect your material world, right? Like, I mean, like, talk about like creating massive lack, right? And if that contract is running and operating in the background, you may be able to make a ton of money, but you may not ever be able to hold it, right? And like, we had the episode about fertility, and is chastity the contract that's running in the background for fertility? These are the things that make these contracts so amazing and amazingly awful.
Yeah, they can be. I mean, maybe they're not amazingly awful. Like, I mean, experiencing the fertility journey that, I have had and that you have had, and we talked very in depth about it, I believe, a couple of episodes ago about that journey. There's a lot of blessings in there and a lot of things to learn, but it was definitely affecting real time the life that we're living here and now in this lifetime, and needed to be taken care of.
Right. Right.
Contract ripped up, null and void, whatever. Burn the
Yeah.
contract. There is no more contract. It's null and
Well,
void.
and I think the thing about contracts that are so funny in the way that they're like developed is they're kind of like they're developed by the soul, right? The soul makes the contracts, and the soul doesn't have the human emotion component when it's creating it. Like, it's the soul isn't thinking about like, oh, how is that going to feel?
Yeah,
The
that's
soul is
gonna be
just like,
hard.
yeah, the soul is just kind of like, oh yeah, let's just try that, and let's just experience that. And so there's no it's funny like how the soul is so enlightened, and it has so much experience. I mean, obviously if it's an older soul it would have more experience, but that doesn't mean that it has human experience. An old
No,
soul doesn't if you're an old soul, it doesn't mean that your experience was human. You could have been from a different planet, from a different world, from a different species altogether. I mean, just
heard.
because, yeah. So like you don't it doesn't think about the human emotional experience as an outcome to the contract that it just created,
Yeah.
or that it's running in the background.
It's interesting because the thing that keeps coming back to me is a video I was listening to just the other day, actually. I think it might have been yesterday. And it was like a near death experience kind of podcast or whatever. And this kid, or this individual, when he was a kid, he was riding his dirt bike, or a trike or something like that, hit a tree. Last thing he remembers is hitting the tree, and then he remembers seeing himself above himself, all mangled around this tree. And then he was talking about his experience about, how he didn't go towards a light. It felt like he just rose up, 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 and then all of a sudden like met Jesus, and then was like by a babbling brook and whatever. And so this was one of the questions that he had asked him, like, why do people experience these emotions? Like, why can't you just tell us, like, that's gonna hurt, or like, this is hurt? And what Jesus had said in that moment to him was, you wouldn't understand the depth. You wouldn't have the depth of understanding of that feeling. He's like, I could tell you the stove is hot, but would you have the same understanding as touching the stove and being like, oh shoot, that's hot, now I've burnt myself? No, the understanding wouldn't be as relevant or as deep unless you experienced it. And I think really that's what our souls crave, is to have every single experience that is possible between all of our souls. Like maybe each soul has a different outcome or a different idea of like, I want to experience kind of this realm of possibilities, if you will. Maybe not. Maybe it's like, I want to experience as much as possible. And then it gets here and it's like, hey, yeah, no, that's dumb. I'm never coming back. I'm good on experiencing, right? Because we get the
Right.
choice of reincarnating back to this place. So that's another story. But that's the story that keeps popping in, is that the depth of understanding of what those feelings are is different when you experience it. And then on a soul level, even though we've experienced those other things, the attachment, the like, the word that they're giving me, veracity of feeling that we feel inside of the experience is different than when we're just looking back upon the experience. We still have that depth of understanding, but the emotional tie to it isn't like in that moment when we're experiencing it.
You know, it's interesting. Like, I love that you brought up the near death experience that you like watched or listened to or whatever. And the thing that I think is so incredibly fascinating about that is that for like 2 weeks, I think, after the soul leaves the body, you know, the body dies, the soul leaves the body, you know, if the soul makes the transition, you know, to the other side and doesn't like stay earthbound or whatever, but makes a transition, there is a life in review process that occurs.
Mm,
And what's so fascinating to me is and my understanding, and if you're watching this and I'm wrong, please correct me in the comments, because I do not want to give out inaccurate information. They're like, no, you got this. They're like reading my thoughts. So funny. Is that in that lifetime, like that life in review time period, that is the only time that like the soul can actually experience the feelings like one last time before the feelings are removed. And I think that's so fascinating, because when we get here, we have the amnesia, right?
right.
Like when we're little, we can still stay connected, we still have a clue, we still know why we're here, like we have all that connection. And then at a certain point, the amnesia really sets in and we're completely clueless. And then the same thing happens like in reverse on the way
Yeah.
back. You
Yeah.
know, you can still like feel and experience the emotions, but then at some point that ceases, and you're just a soul with all of the knowledge and the wisdom and everything that you obtain, but you don't have that emotional attachment to the memory. And I think that that's so incredibly fascinating, and I think that really captures that as above so below like
Mm,
idea, you know.
yeah. So
Yeah.
encompassing this conversation, or in alignment with the conversation, how is karma different than a contract?
My The way that I understand karma, and I've done a lot of channeling when it comes to karma, because this is something that comes up oftentimes in my private client sessions. You know, they always
Mhm.
want to know about their purpose, they always want to know about their plan, and they always want to know about karma. Like those are three big topics that come up. And of everything that I've channeled on karma, what
Of course.
what of course. What else would you like to know?
Yeah.
So, you know, when it comes to karma, a lot of the time humans think that karma is a bad thing.
Yeah.
And in fact, karma isn't good or bad. It just is. So it just is. There is no good and there is no bad. If it's good or it's bad, that's something that your brain is assigning to it. It's
Mm,
not your brain is what's making it mean something.
right.
But karma just is. So if you are having a karmic experience, it is either something, it's owed to you, right? Karma is owed, right? It's either something that you've given and now you're receiving, hopefully in kind, right?
Hmm.
But it just is. So, for example, I have had many past lifetimes, lots and lots of them, where I have been tortured, I've been abused, I've been starved, I've been poked and prodded and medically tested on. Like, I have had some tumultuous past lives, to say it lightly, you know.
Mhm.
And in doing the past life regression work that I've done, it was painful seeing myself go through that stuff and like kind of like almost like reliving it all over again. And
Yeah.
so, and now, you know, I'm grateful that I did the work, being able to heal those lifetimes so that they're not something that I carry with me now. But karma built up with this, right? Like,
Yeah.
so like these events occurred, and there were people who did them to me, probably by my own design. I probably said, "Oh yeah, you want to torture some shit? Sign me up for that, you know.
I'm
I'll
in.
do it." You know. So, you know, I went through all these lifetimes of torture, and I'm now in the lifetime where like it's karma repaid in kind. So the people, the souls that I signed up to be the one torturing, or to be the one that's being tortured, the ones who actually tortured me, are now needing to come and support me in what it is that I want to have, like what it is that I get to have. So, you know, I had, you know, there was a lifetime where I had tons of money, I had lots of kids, I had, you know, a lot of status and clout and all of this stuff. And then it was ripped away from me. And then I was like tortured and eventually I died. Right. And so, like, that lifetime was something that could have very easily played out in this lifetime.
Hmm.
And, you know, I can see in many areas of my life where I'd started into that path where it was like, you know, I was building a lot of wealth and I was obtaining a partner, and, you know, all of the things were starting to go my way. And then immediately something would crash, it would all get ripped away. And I was starting it back from nothing.
Yeah.
And so in doing the work to heal that lifetime, it's it's all actually happening, and it's all karma repaid in kind, because I'm owed that this time. That is the plan, that is the purpose, that's why I'm here, is to collect on the karma.
Mm.
After this, I'm not sure if I'll be back.
This might be your last lifetime.
It might be my last lifetime,
Is it
but I'm
always?
kind of a glutton for punishment, so who the hell knows, maybe I'll be back
Yeah,
the next
maybe you'll
time.
come back or maybe you'll have so much karma that needs to be repaid that one lifetime is not enough.
True.
Yeah.
Because that's the other thing about karma, is if you owe karma, good karma, to somebody else, and
Yeah.
you end up taking advantage of them again,
You'll
you
owe them
still
again.
owe it twice.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's the other question that I had when you were talking is it always your last lifetime that you have to wait until the karma is repaid? And I get a no from my guides.
Right.
I get that it could happen at any time. I wonder, like, is there a clock on karma? Like when and how and who is it decided by when the karma begins getting repaid back? Like, is it in the soul's plan that, hey, you've had a lot of shit happen to you, so you're getting karma repaid to you in this lifetime? Because I know I've had many lifetimes of, you know, tumultuous things happening, you know, whatever, right? So I have a buildup. I have like who's the duck that swims in money? The
Scrooge McDuck.
Scrooge McDuck. I have like a
Mhm.
vault like his of wealth. And that could mean a lot of things like resources, money, you know, abilities. I don't know, lots of different things. But I feel like I have this giant vault full of wealth that I'm owed in kind for karma. And
Right.
like who decides when that happens?
I think you do. You know, I think you do. And I think that like when I feel into that, like I'm asking them to, like, do you want to participate in this conversation? They're like, oh yes, we have something to say. um so what they're saying is that, you know, this is where the akashic records are most widely utilized. You know, for those of you that are unfamiliar, I feel like if you're watching this show, you probably know what the akashic records are, but if you
Yeah.
don't, The Akashic records are basically the journaling of every experience and everything that your soul has ever encountered. So it's kind of like a register of events, outcomes, occurrences, who was involved, who were the parties, what exactly happened. Like it's all outlined and detailed in the Akashic records, and every single soul has a record book relaying to them and their experience. So they're saying that this is this is in the records. And so every time you go to make a plan for an incarnation, the records are part of the plan that you create. So it's like, okay, here are the records, let's see, and this is what you want to do. Okay. And so there's like a comparison of like, okay, this person needs to balance the record. So, you're going to have to wait 100 years in order to do this because this soul needs to balance their record with you. And so it may be that, a soul can wait for 200 years to come back in because it's waiting for the balancing to occur.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, that's fascinating.
Yeah. Like
I'm
the
like,
word that
dang.
comes through is like masterful plan. Like what a masterful plan that is so intertwined with each other.
Seriously.
Yeah.
Like, there's so much that we just don't know and probably will never be able to fully comprehend about the web of existence.
Yeah, I
And
agree.
I mean, and that's kind of how like I see it. It's like just this huge web of existence. And I mean, this is why, there is the one, right? The oneness, that we are all connected and that it's all happening right now, that this, waiting 200 years isn't really a thing. Maybe 200 human years, but it's all right now in the big picture, the
Yeah.
big master plan. It's so fascinating. Blows my mind
It's
like every time.
yeah, it is mind blowing how big it truly is and how small, like it really puts into perspective how small the problems that you think you have are truly. Like they're
Mhm.
so insignificant. They didn't have your brand of milk at the store, or, you know, the bag didn't seal properly on the $25 snacks that you bought your dog. Like there's a lot of insignificant things that take up space in our brains as humans. And I think that's by design, not necessarily the design of the universe, but the design of the society that we're in at this time and some of the distortions that we're experiencing with some people monkeying with things. um
Right.
but it does make it takes me back, and I look at things with an even bigger perspective, which is always something that I do anyway. So it's an even more giant step backwards to see that there's so much more to see.
Totally. And look, I know that there's a lot going on, like in our political climate,
Mhm.
in our like social climate. There's just a lot of personalities and a lot of crazy decisions that are being made. And, but the thing to remember about that is that all of these people are playing their part in the big picture. And so, as insane as some of it seems, and I know we're all up in arms about the crazy shit, right? I mean, I think I can universally say that for pretty much probably everyone in the world. I
Yeah.
think I'm free to say that. And if
Yeah.
I'm wrong and you think that the world's just going along swimmingly right now, please correct me in the comments. I would love to hear that because I
Yeah.
have yet to hear anybody think that the world is going well. But if we look at the world and we're like, oh man, this crazy world is so freaking crazy right now, and we can get all crazy about it being crazy, but the fact is that everything that's happening right now is happening on purpose. It's right on time, it's perfectly orchestrated, and all of the craziness And the crazy people that are creating the craziness, they are playing their role in the big picture. They're just
And
playing their role.
it's always for the greater good. And what gives me, solace in the middle of the night, if I wake up or when I go to sleep at night, is that, the light always wins. God always wins. The universe always wins. Like the good always triumphs. And
Yep.
when you see that this is all just a part of the masterful plan, and there's all these characters, you can have that hope that it's all for the greater good of what's yet to come, which
Yep.
we may not know, but is already in place and already happening.
Exactly. Exactly.
Another beautiful conversation in the books. If you liked this episode, make sure that you hit that like button and you share it with all of your friends and that you're subscribed. We sure appreciate you coming along for the ride with us, and we'd love to hear your opinion on what you've seen, or maybe tell us some of your soul contracts that you've discovered, or karma, or some crazy stories. We'd love to hear from you. So make sure you hit up that chat and tell us all about it.
All right. See you next week, everyone.
Bye.